Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. All right, we're live. Oh, 4 or 5 minutes behind schedule. Sorry about that, guys. Live is hard mode, and the new studio, man, we're getting there. Getting it all put back together. All right. We're gonna talk about the Ten Commandments this morning. Let's do this. All right. Good morning. Ooh, that fade was a little quick. I might need to bump that up. Okay, see if that better. All right. Good morning, everybody. I see Tim's got first blood this morning. Good to see you guys. Megan, I'm looking forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Day after tomorrow. Um, and Cindy's with us this morning too. Good to see you again this morning, Sunshine. Thanks for joining us. All right, the Ten Commandments. Uh, I have not read the article that we're about to look at. We're going to be reading this together for the first time. But I have read some other excerpts, and I'm tracking on what's going on. But I'll pull the CNN article on the topic because it's always fun to make fun of CNN and how they just completely shit over everything. So let's take a look. Excuse me. So, Louisiana classrooms now required by law to display the Ten Commandments. Now, I've got some opinions on this. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but let's read the article and see what they say. Louisiana public schools are now required to display the Ten Commandments in all classrooms after Republican Governor Jeff Landry signed the requirement into law Wednesday. I do and don't like this move for a lot of reasons, but we'll get to it in a second. House Bill 71, approved by state lawmakers last month, mandates that a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments with large, easily readable font be in every classroom at schools that receive state funding from kindergarten through the university level. Um, I, in a lot of ways, I like this as a counter, as a maneuver against the BLM and LGBT flags that are being stuck into classrooms, and quite simply, forget about free speech and the question of how the First Amendment works for just a second. We're gonna get into that in a minute with as far as separation of church and state, etc. Um, but the lefties the lefties love to cite separation of church and state and things like hate speech. They they're obsessed with the idea uh that no amendment, and Joe Biden is famous for saying this repeatedly, that no amendment is absolute. That there are limits to every amendment to the Constitution. Well, while that is clearly not true of the Second Amendment, based on the plain language of the amendment, there is an argument there to be made with regard to the First Amendment, because the First Amendment, and like all amendments, is a restriction on government, not on private citizens. So, take that example with the Second Amendment. I could put a sign in my front yard that says that this is a gun-free zone and that you are not allowed by my personal preference and the governance of my private property, which is my individual right, that I don't want you to have a firearm on my property. Well, the only way I can enforce that is to enforce it myself. That personal private policy does not have the force of law. So the Second Amendment doesn't come into play. Oh shit. I'll just have to try to refresh that page. Looks like that's weird. CNN is having a hard time keeping its. Oh, I see what the problem is. It's overloaded with fucking ads. They're breaking it. So the First Amendment, as far as limitations go, what we're talking about here, Louisiana, is a state. The First Amendment is very clear. It says the Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, assembly, petition, exercise of religion, etc. And the press, right? Those are the five: free speech, free religion, free press, freedom to assemble, freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances. But it is the Congress shall make no law. And that is an important distinction. And it is a distinction that does not exist in the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment simply says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is an injunction on all levels of power that are signatory to the Constitution, which is to say all organized governments throughout the United States and its constituents without exception. Whereas the First Amendment says the Congress shall make no law. So there is an argument to be made that an individual state can do anything it wants. Now, of course, I do take some issue because this is tantamount to compelled speech. I'd be totally comfortable if the law said, if the law even incentivized or simply said, you may display the 10 Commandments in your classroom. But understand that for a very long time now, anytime you try to put up some kind of religious iconography in a classroom in a public school, you're going to have the ACLU and the Church of Satan and the Democrat Party, but I repeat myself. And while that's a funny joke, they are all the same organization. Essentially, or at least they're the same people. And they bear all the same interests. They're going to come swarming out of the woodwork to smack you down. Now, Landry says that he's excited for the lawsuits. He's looking forward to the lawsuits, and I don't blame him. They will be fun, and he will be able to. I think he will be able to prevail on the argument that this is the action of an individual state, not the action of the Congress, which is the entity which is restricted from taking such actions. Now, like I said, I do have a problem here, in that it says that if CNN's reading is correct, that each classroom is required to display the 10 Commandments. That's compelled speech. And I'm not a big fan of compelled speech. As in, try me. Your pronouns. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The pronouns. Let's talk about the pronouns for a second. How do pronouns work? Because one of that was Jordan Peterson's big bugaboo that basically propelled him through controversy to, just absolute superstardom. Let's take Jordan Peterson as an example, and what you're looking at, the guy is a college professor and a clinical psychiatrist, right? You know, these are potentially valuable and profitable jobs, but you don't think of scientists, even soft scientists like that, as being as being role models, as being, you know, I mean, okay, yeah, maybe as role models if they're adequately conservative, etc. But as being like celebrity. But Peterson went on television and said, if you require me to use the pronouns, I will refuse to do it. If you tell me that I will be fired from my job, then I will be fired from my job. If you incarcerate me, I will go on hunger strike. I will not do it. I won't do it. I will not have my speech compelled. Let's talk a little bit about what that compelled speech amounted to. And I don't hear people talk about this part of the equation enough. What they're talking about with the pronouns is, remember, he, she, it, right? What are pronouns? Pronouns are the third person filler words which you use as a sort of shorthand when you're referring to something which you have already referred to directly in the same sentence. John is my friend. He likes to fly drones. We occasionally meet in the park to fly drones. Right? A person who is demanding that you use their preferred pronouns, when is the last time you addressed a person directly by a pronoun? Right? Right? Tim, in October, Tim, am I going to walk up to you at the tasting table at the tent and look you in the eye and say, hey, you want to drink a scotch? No, because I would sound like a fucking retard. One uses pronouns when they are making reference to a person who is not there. One uses pronouns when they are speaking about a third person. So I am expected to have my speech compelled in respect for your imagination in your absence, as if you merit even my mere consideration when you're not right here to annoy me. Fuck off with that. Right? You do not, you absolutely do not get to tell me how I will use my sacred tongue. Right? Polyglot, linguist here. Right? I got a half a dozen of these under my belt. Let me tell you something. I take my language very, very serious. There are very few things in this world that aggravate me more than dealing with a low-end service professional who's clearly speaking in their first language and they're unintelligible. That hurts me personally, right? It's one thing if English is your second language and you're bad at it, but oh, oh, oh. You ever walk into a dozen donuts and look at an obviously native-born American and say, I'd like a dozen donuts? And they say, okay, how many? Walk up to a counter like a McDonald's. Hey, let me get a couple of cheeseburgers. Okay, how many? Have you met this language? Jesus Christ. So compelled speech, bad. However, there is another angle worth discussing here, and that is the suicide bomber. It's tough, tricky, and we don't use suicide bombers. U.S. military does not use suicide bombers. Never have, never will. But one must at least understand the tactics and stratagems of the enemy. Because even if those terrible strategies and tactics are utterly unreproducible because they're so morally and ethically repugnant, without understanding them tactically and strategically, one becomes unable to counteract them. So for a decade, I mean, at least, no, more than, excuse me, more than, right? For more than a decade, right? We've gone from, we've gone through the whole gamut from Negro to N-word to, oh well, it's wrong to, it's evil to call them colored people, all the way back around to, well, we're going to call them people of color. Do people not understand the transitive property of the linguistic possessive descriptors, right? People of color and colored people are literally the same phrase. They are not similar phrases. They have identical meaning. This is a ball pen. A pen of ball. Which, by the way, is very different than a pen of Baal. Which, whew, talk about adopting the tools of the enemy. A pen of Baal. Now there's a thought. Ooh, not sure what to do with that one. But we're looking at the question of compelled speech, and like I said, that's another question altogether. Oh God, Tim. Tim. Actually, I had a relatively good experience at a Walmart yesterday. For a long time. Okay, this is a little bit off track. I went to Walmart yesterday. As you guys know now, I've moved far enough out in the country that Walmart is basically the grocery store within a half a mile drive. I'm sorry, within half a mile, within a half an hour. So I went to Walmart yesterday to get some groceries, and as many of you also know, I'm still in recovery and convalescence from a battle with pneumonia that really wiped me out, y'all. Whew, just going grocery shopping yesterday. I mean, just wiped me out for the rest of the day. It was exhausting. Um, but I had while I was there, a couple little old dudes come up and it all over again. It was one of those. Oh well, this is your first language, right? A couple little old black dudes come up. Hey, bro. You know what the fly bobber is? I'm sorry. What? The fly bobbers. The, the fly bopper. Oh, yeah. You hit the fly with it. You hit the fly with it. And I finally managed to tear through and figure out that he was saying fly bopper in place of fly swatter. He was mumbling it, and oh my god. Okay, it's a fly bopper. Gotcha. and they, you know, I was actually over in the garden and outdoor section because I was grabbing some stuff for my Blackstone, um, because I have to recondition it because I was in the hospital for a week, and so now there's rust on my Blackstone. Ah! But I just happened to be in the right section. You know what a fly by that. And, oh, there. It's there on the end cap. Dear Christ. So yeah, Tim, I can relate. That wasn't even dealing with the employees. Um, but okay, let me get back to the compelled speech thing. CNN broke again. Let me see if I can get their article back up so we can dig through that a little bit, and then okay, fetching relevant contents. There it is. So the legislation specifies the exact language that must be printed on the classroom displays and outlines that the text of the Ten Commandments must be the central focus of the poster or framed document. If you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original law given, which was Moses. He got his commands from God, Landry said. Now, that okay. Here's where I start to break on the compelled speech part. Um, to my knowledge, there has not been law enacted anywhere that compelled speech as so far as to require these teachers to display the LGBT BLM stuff in their classrooms. But they've been doing it in larger and larger numbers, and there have been clear practices where the schools themselves and the administration of the schools are actively encouraging the teachers to display this iconography, the LGBT, the BLM, the Palestine stuff, the Ukraine flag, um, and the teachers themselves are shaming and blaming each other into complying with that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, uh, the lefties love to cite separation of church and state, etc. Except you have to remember, whenever you hear one of these lefties talk about the separation of church and state, they do not mean the separation of church and state. They mean specifically the separation of Christianity and state. They're more than happy to fly Muslim flags, Islamic flags, solidarity with Palestine flags. And let's be clear, the LGBT flag is the flag of a religious and a political organization. It is a flag of an organization that is large, that is well organized, and is simultaneously religious, having sacraments, blasphemies, and heresies, all of which are enforced, in some cases by force of law, but at least by shame of the crowd, blaming and shaming, struggle sessions, etc. In the same way that communism, the church, you cannot separate the church and state in communism because the church is the state, right? In the same way that in Germany, crosses were torn down and replaced with images of the Fuhrer and swastikas. In the same way that in North Korea, every home has an altar in it with a photograph of the dear leader, the great leader, the dear leader, and the brilliant comrade, right? Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Un, and Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Un, Kim. Il Sung, Kim Jong Il, Kim Jong Un. The last one is Un. The brilliant comrade. The current fat boy. Um, but it, the LGBT stuff, in the same way that you cannot separate the church and state in Nazi Germany, communist Russia, communist China, in the people's Republic of North Korea, you cannot separate the church and state, the politic and the religion in the LGBT recruiting mechanism. It is very much a part of them. And they have been skirting the issue of government compelled speech by doing it politically and directly. So, while I do not like the compelled speech angle of this Ten Commandments law, it is necessary at times to essentially it feels like taking a page out of Saul Alinsky's book and saying identify the enemy's rules and make them live up to them. Make them uphold their own law, because they can't do it. All right, guys, I am going to have to put a pin in it there, and I will see you. So thanks for watching this morning. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope I didn't get too esoteric on that one. But thanks for watching. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.